What's up, my Archfiends of Chaos? This is your King, not Vince Valentine, I'm EX Turk, and I want to make a little video response to. Let me have to have the music equal. There, it's equal. It's at equal level. Okay, and people are surprised that the Final Fantasy VII is gonna change canon, and you rewrite the story where the compilations don't exist anymore. But I got a question to you, Square Enix fanboys. I got a question. Are you really that surprised? I mean, let's be quite honest. Let's be completely realistic here. Let's be completely realistic here. You think this is the first time they've done this? Do you remember Final Fantasy 15? You know, Final Fantasy 15 so many years ago, from 2006, 2011, and even 2013, Final Fantasy 15 were supposed to be Final Fantasy Versus 13, which never actually happened. They made trailers and releases on Versus 13, but Versus 13 never happened. So what they did was change the canon when it became 15 to actually get the official title to Final Fantasy 15. Now, I don't say that. I'm not gonna say that Versus the World versus will never exist, because it's possible for the DLC for the 10 years that Noctis is in stasis. We get a World of Versus, which would probably be called something else, but it'd still be the World of Versus. And Versus 13 would be a lot better like that. But Nonetheless, Final Fantasy VII is the only one that the remake isn't the only one that had continuities. Now, you probably say, oh, you're defending Tetsuo Normal. Why do you keep defending that perfectionist, self-righteous, hot guy a hot topic type of guy that keeps pushing back his games? Well, because they've done this before. You think that Tetsuo Normal is the worst thing, but Final Fantasy's continuity changes has already been happening in 15. Now, I don't know if other Final Fantasies were like this before, and I gotta be quite honest, I don't know, because they didn't really change very much in Type 0, except for graphics was in HD, but it still had things to do with Fal'Cie and L'Cie, and still was part of the Fabula Crystallis Novia. Fabula Crystallis Novia. I'm trying to say this 10 times fast, but part of the Fabula Crystallis Novia. It ain't really changed much in the game, except, well, I don't know. Type 0 had a hell lot of censoring, which I don't make sense for a game that's clearly M-rated, yet you have to purchase with an ID. When I bought for Type 0, I had to present my ID there to get it, but nonetheless, Type 0, that's why I don't understand the whole censoring thing when they got a lot of blood and Type 0. But nonetheless, Final Fantasy has been doing continuity changes. Now, people who hate the continuity changes are usually closed-minded people who don't actually play the games. They just listen to everybody's outrage. Now, I'm not going to lie. I was outraged when I heard the news that Tetsuo Norman is going to cut the Final Fantasy VII compilation from Final Fantasy VII Remake, and that's because I remember Final Fantasy VII going into those. But that's just my, what I remember, So, I was pissed off. I was not too happy about that. But they have the rights to do that, And let's be quite honest, we're going to be seeing more of this stuff. Whether a game gets a remake, whether they do a movie based off a comic book, whether they do anything else, changes in continuity are going to always occur no matter what. It's a popular thing to change things, And I kind of like it because it makes it original and you're not replaying the same thing or rewatching the same exact thing. Now, before I get far into the rabbit hole on this, Final Fantasy is synonymous to continuity change. I don't know if they did anything with 13 or 10 or any games before that, but if you really could go back, Final Fantasy 12 is connected to tactics, right? Well, see, Final Fantasy 12 is nothing like tactics. Notice something? But that's just based off interpretation. But Square Enix does say that Tactics is related to Final Fantasy 12. So we believe it because that's what they say. The company that creates the games has all the rights to say, legal rights to say that something is part of the continuity and something isn't. Now, yes, like I said about Final Fantasy 15 was Versus 13. For anyone who does not know, go on your history lessons, go look up the Final Fantasy Versus 13 trailers. You'll see it's almost the exact same except for story change, graphics change, even character changes because Luna Freya never really existed. In fact, Luna Freya was actually Stella. They just changed the name of the character and made a new model. And that's what Luna Freya currently is. But it's like, should we get mad or should we embrace this? I honestly think we should embrace it. Yeah, we're gonna get mad. We're gonna get pissed off. We're gonna throw a bitch fit. We're gonna be screaming and hollering about all this stuff. But let's try to keep an open mind. Like before, I wasn't too sure about Final Fantasy 15, even though before Chapter 13 and how Chapter 13 ruined some parts of the game. Before Chapter 13, I gave 15 a chance, and you know what? In some aspects, I kind of like it better than Versus 13. Only game-wise. Now, concept-wise, Versus 13 was the more superior game due to concept-wise. But I like the way that they made this into a new game without doing too much and spending too much money because all they had to do was remodel Versus 13 characters, create new levels, and, create a new exact story that could go with the games that are synonymous with the games, which is funny because I'm listening to synonymous Final Fantasy 15 soundtrack. But the point I'm trying to say is that continuity change is a natural thing in the Final Fantasy universe. And to be quite honest, I think if you open your mind to it, you might actually end up liking it. Like how I like Final Fantasy 15 a lot. I really do. Now, it's not the best Final Fantasy game out there, and I'm going to be quite honest. It isn't, and it's because Chapter 13 did something to make it like this, and that's why they're going to fill in the blanks with the World Versus. But it still was a good game. So we got to thank Final Fantasy Versus 13 for creating 15, because if it wasn't for Versus, but at the same time, Versus 13 is over until they come out with that DLC for the 10 years. The game's over. It's not going to exist anymore. As a full game. It's only going to be a DLC level pack. It's never going to be a full game. So we need to get used to the fact that Versus 13 will never actually happen. Unless it's only a DLC package. The point I'm trying to say is, if you try and give it a chance, you may actually learn to like the medium. You may actually learn to like this new canon, this new idea that comes out. You may actually learn to like Tetsuo Norma's ideals when he wants to change Final Fantasy VII forever. This might even be the definitive and better version of Final Fantasy VII when it comes out. Who knows? You might end up liking this better than the original game, and probably won't be able to play the original game the same way again. You might end up liking the remake a lot better, so who knows? Who exactly knows? That's why I say people should give it a chance. Because I said before Final Fantasy 15 came out, and they did too many changes in the trailers, and the trailers were nothing like the game, I kind of was iffy on the game. But then when I got it at the launch, and I put it in, installed it, do all that fun stuff that you get to do when you're a gamer, I was like, I like this. In fact, it made it to number 3 on one of my favorite Final Fantasy games. Based on me playing it and actually liking it. Despite it diverted from its source material Versus 13, it was still a good enough game to play. And in fact, I thoroughly enjoyed it. To you guys seeing how many streams I have of it, how much topic videos I have of it. I really liked the game Final Fantasy 15. And, I liked Versus 13 when it was a concept, But at the same time, we need to grow up and not get so mad that Square Enix wants to change continuity. Sometimes it's to please people who are just getting in the Final Fantasy fanbase. Have you ever thought in your mind that maybe that these games aren't just for us alone? That some of these games, that some of these games belong to the general public, that they're trying to get the general public to be interested. And let's be quite honest, I think the Final Fantasy VII Remake is trying to learn from Final Fantasy 15, because Final Fantasy 15 forced you to watch the Kingsglaive movie, watch the Brotherhood anime, you know, play A King's Tale, and play Final Fantasy 15 at the same time to understand the story. You know, I get that they're trying to market that way, and that's a smart way to market, because if you want to know the full story of the whole series, you gotta watch those things and play those things, you know. But no one wants to relearn a whole compilation. So there's a reason why they change things to appease the new generation. I don't think anyone who's going to play the Final Fantasy VII Remake that's a new Final Fantasy fan or a gamer who just got started on a Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy VII Remake is actually the very first Final Fantasy they get into. I don't think they want to go back and relearn the original canon. Like, I don't think they want to go back and play Crisis Core, watch Avid Children, play Dirge of Cerberus, and try to learn all this stuff. Just the same way when they did Final Fantasy 15. Because, you know, Versus 13 was actually a compilation part of the Final Fantasy 13 universe. That's why Tabata removed a lot of references to Seath, Lassie, Fal'Cie, and all that stuff, because it wouldn't make sense for it to be a new game and not be its own universe. So they had to just change things around, and it plays like a new game. And it gets in Final Fantasy 15 is a good game because it gets people into Final Fantasy. It gets the general public being interested, especially with the combat system they have, and then the fact they got a car so that it has a GTA feeling to it. This will get more Westerners into Final Fantasy games. And then also you get food that builds your stamina, builds your HP and MP and level. This is a smart and brilliant idea to change continuity, to get people that don't usually play Final Fantasy games into Final Fantasy games, which will get them into the medium. Because I'm going to be quite honest, I got introduced by the original Final Fantasy VII. You know, I didn't start out with all my knowledge of Final Fantasy. I started off, it's like a gateway drug. Final Fantasy VII is a gateway drug. Now, since people are used to harder things, you have to make a stronger gateway drug. So the Final Fantasy VII Remake is supposed to be that stronger gateway drug to get you hooked on every other Final Fantasy. But you can't do that if you're forcing people to learn a lot of the original lore. And, you know, instead, once you incorporate that lore inside the games and make it better, and make it even better than the originals. Now, I'm running a little bit over time, but I just gotta say, I'm okay with continuity change, and I support Square Enix continuity change, and those are the reasons why I support it. Because new gen gamers could get into the series. And also, may the crystal be with you. I approve of continuity change.